Hello, I'm Benjamin Cummings, here today with Ross Riskin, CPA, PFS, and Certified College Financial Consultant. Good to have you with us.
Thanks for having me, Benjamin.
So we want to talk about student loans and how families make decisions about loans. You know, the first step, though, is they need to be eligible. How are families eligible for student loans?
Well, that's a great question, a great topic to bring up as it's a hot topic in the news today. It sounds like every day there's something. We're talking about the student loan crisis. But in order for families to actually be eligible to participate in the federal student aid program, they need to fill out the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid. So some advisors or some clients may think, oh, they don't need to fill that out. They make too much money. They have too much in assets. They're not going to qualify for any aid. And that is the case if they don't fill it out. So they have to fill it out to be able to even participate in the programs.
So the FAFSA is actually needed for more than just grants, but you actually need that for loans.
Yeah, absolutely. So to be eligible, both the students and the parents to participate and borrow loans, they have to fill out the FAFSA.
Okay, that's good to know. So then how does a family make decisions about who's going to borrow, the parent or the student?
Yeah, it can be difficult to decide that, and that kind of comes back to the conversation of, well, should the parents be focused on retirement or should they be focused on helping their child pay for college? So the general consensus is there aren't many options to borrow for retirement, but you have a plethora of options available to borrow for college, and that's true. And so the federal student aid program is one of them. So there are certain loans that are available only to students that don't require a credit check, any background check of that sort. And then there are also loans available to parents in the form of what is known as a PLUS loan. So there are options out there. The student loans tend to be that are borrowed by the students tend to be more favorable because they are at lower interest rates, and the family actually may qualify for an interest subsidization on the loans. So if the student actually demonstrates financial need as based on the financial aid formula and determined by the school, a part of the interest that's accruing while they're in school is actually being paid for by the government. So there are some very nice benefits on the forefront of taking out loans by the student.
Okay, that's good to know. How about private loans, and how does that enter this decision about loans?
Yeah, private loans definitely aren't something that should be ignored. However, they don't have anywhere near the benefits or options that federal loans have. So private loans, a lot of people may think of those if they're trying to refinance a loan later on when they get out of school, or maybe consolidate a loan. But the minute you do that, you lose all the provisions available to federal loan programs. So you lose that interest subsidization that maybe you were getting on your federal loans. You lose the ability to participate in numerous repayment plans. I believe there are 10 different repayment plans. Some of them are based on income, so they can actually be more favorable to you if when you first come out of school, you're not earning as much as you will later. The payment kind of matches your income there, or is at least more related to your income level. Also, from a death and disability discharge position, federal loans are more favorable than private loans there, because essentially most private loans are going to require a cosigner. So even if the original borrower passes away or becomes disabled, there's still somebody else technically on the hook for the loan. Whereas with a student loan, if the student passes away, it's forgiven. If with a Parent Plus loan, if either the student on whose behalf the loan was taken out passes away, or the parent who borrowed passes away, the loan is forgiven. So there are a lot of additional benefits that are lost the minute we go to the private loan side of things.
That's very good to know. So how about the repayment side? You mentioned repayment options. How does a family decide what repayment option to select, but then also who does it, the parents or the child?
Yeah, it really depends. So in most cases, it's going to be the child participating in that, because most of the loans that are eligible are only the loans that the student is eligible to borrow. So there are some payment plans that the parents can participate in outside of the regular standard 10-year repayment plan. But there are a plethora of them out there. So like I said, there are 10 out there. There are 4 very popular income-driven repayment plans, but it's very confusing. So it's very important for advisors to really look up the provisions with these plans, get the right tools to use to be able to do an analysis. And it is absolutely something that's not a set and forget. It's not a, let's pick this repayment plan and we'll talk about this 20 years from now when maybe you get forgiveness. It's something we got to look at every year, because certain repayment plans look at tax filing status, they look at if you're married, they're considering other debt of a spouse. So there's a lot of moving parts to figuring out what is the proper repayment plan to select.
What I'm hearing is that there may be options to even switch the repayment plan down the road.
Correct. There definitely are options for that. However, I would generally advise against that in certain circumstances because we have a number of events that actually can trigger interest capitalization. So, and that becomes an issue when, we know interest capitalization means that interest now gets added to the principal balance and now you're paying interest on interest. So it's very important that we're looking at it as early as possible with a client to make sure they're selecting the best plan for their situation from the get-go. If something happens later on, we can talk about, okay, what makes sense to maybe move over here or switch a repayment plan, but keeping those considerations in mind is very important.
Now that's very good to know. So what is a student's role in this repayment decision process?
Yeah, I mean, the student's role is that they need to be educated and they need to be aware of what that repayment is going to look like when they graduate. So too often they kind of fly through the entrance counseling and the exit counseling for the loan. They go on the computer, fill it out, that they're not really understanding that, hey, this is a payment I'm going to have for the next 10 years, or this is a payment I'm going to have for the next 20 or 25 years. So it's something they really need to be educated about, and often either if I'm teaching in the classroom or working with a client and showing their child, I'll show them this chart or a PowerPoint I have, or actually show them, hey, let's assume you go to school and when you graduate you have $30,000 in loans, you want to save an emergency fund, and you want to save for a house to buy in 10 years. So I kind of show them these three basic goals. Then I put up some expenses for rent, food, insurance, such, and I show them that, hey, in order to do these three things, you need to be making $55,000, $56,000 a year when you come out of school. And it's kind of an eye-opener because they don't realize that, wow, I have these other expenses to worry about that once I get out of school, I'm kind of on my own, or maybe I can't live in that apartment, I have to go home. So the student loan decision definitely has an impact on the decisions they make, both when looking at schools and choosing career paths as well. So it's not something that I would say needs to dictate totally what they end up doing, but they just need to be aware of it so they can manage their expectations.
Now that's great to know. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you.